Hi, this is Michael William Denny and of ThunderShamanism.com, and today we're going to be talking about the true origins of Halloween and how you can take advantage of this most sacred of days. From a shamanic perspective, Halloween is one of the most sacred days of the year, and traditionally speaking, in ancient cultures, according to the old ways, according to the ways going back all the way back into prehistory, this time of year is actually one of the most sacred because this is the time of the year when you connect with the ascended masters and with the ancestors. And this is found all over the world. The interesting thing is that this time of year, the time that we call Halloween, all over the world, especially if you look at indigenous cultures, you will find that this is the time of year when you honor the ancestors and you connect with them and you can even communicate with them. So from a shamanic perspective, why is that? It's because at this time of the year in the northern hemisphere, the way that the sun is hitting the earth, the way that the light rays hit our atmosphere is actually creating a vortex. It creates a spiritual gateway, and that's why Halloween all over the world is seen as a time when the veil between this world and the spirit world is at the thinnest. Trick-or-treating, as you know, is kids come up to your door and they're dressed in costumes as ghouls or monsters or goblins or whatever, and they say trick-or-treat, meaning if you don't give them a treat, they'll play some kind of a prank on you. Well, this goes back to an even earlier pagan tradition in the Celtic pagan culture, where you would dress up as one of the ancient gods, or you would dress up as a nature spirit. And the idea is that through you would go to somebody's house in the village and they would give you food to eat, and you would actually be eating that food. If you're dressed up in a costume, you would be eating that food in place of the spirits. So you would be appeasing the nature spirits. The idea was that you were just about to enter into the winter when it was very cold, and that the natural world around you was going to shut down. And could they make it through? Could the trees and the plants and the animals make it through this very difficult period? And so the idea was to give food to the spirits of the land so that they could store that food or have something to nourish themselves to get them through the winter. Now, there was an aspect, because the veil between the living and the dead, the spiritual and the physical, was at the thinnest. There was an aspect that you did have to be careful. So let's focus on that first, because that's the only thing that's survived into Halloween: ghosts and ghouls and goblins. So again, because of the way the sun is hitting the earth at this time, this creates a vortex, and so beings of all kind can get into our world much more easily. So the idea was that we wanted to make sure that only the positive, the constructive, the healing kinds of spirits could make their way in, but at the same time we wanted to create a barrier of protection so that we could keep all of the negative spiritual influences out. But again, all that we remember now is it's all ghosts and goblins. That was done by the church. The church wanted to frighten people out of worshiping in the old ways so that they would worship only the church. They would be in church all the time, scared to death. They used fear in order to keep people in the new religion and keep them out of the old, because if they followed the old ways, they might not follow the new religion, which meant they might not follow the leaders, whoever was in control, the government, blah, blah, blah. So it was a way to control the population through fear. But there was an aspect of this. And so one of the things that used to be done, and this was done even up into, this 1700s, even here in the U.S., is that they made a bonfire. And the bonfire goes back into ancient pagan rituals where the fire purifies. Now, fire is also a portal to the other side. And fire, if you've ever done fire rituals, you can communicate with higher beings. You can communicate, use the fire to travel to different places. But fire is also there to purify the soul. There's two kinds of fire in Indo-European language, which we've lost one of the meanings. Ing meant internal spiritual fire, and it was the fire of the gods. You put the sacrifice onto that fire, and the smoke from that sacrifice went to the gods. We see it in church when they walk around with the incense. That goes back to an ancient pagan ritual of sending the smoke of the sacrifices to the gods. Your prayers went with that smoke, and then you could get your answers and you get blessings from the gods. So they would light these bonfires, and then in order to protect the home, they would get a torch and stick it in the bonfire, and they would go around the house in a clockwise fashion or in a sunwise fashion in order to drive away the evil spirits. Now, what about jack-o'-lanterns? What about carving pumpkins? That goes back to a time when, again, you want to invite the ancestors, but you want to drive away the evil spirits. So what they would do is they would carve ugly faces, and people would dress up in scary costumes, and they would walk around in the village and act like scary monsters. And what they were doing is they were driving away the evil spirits. It's basically like when a bully's coming into town, you get a bigger bully to chase out the bully. That's what they were doing. So by doing that, the negative entities couldn't see who they were because they were wearing a costume, so nobody would get possessed. But at the same time, they were basically saying to the negative spirits that you're not welcome here, and if you come in here, we're going to beat the crap out of you. The pre-Christian Germanic tribal tradition, Halloween was called the elf ritual, or Alfablot. And blot means blood, and blood is something that you use to bless people with. It was something that you used, the blood of the sacrificial animal. So there was sacrifices that were done to the elves. Now, who are the elves? The elves are not little tiny people with pointy hats that live in trees and make cookies or make toys for Santa. The elves are the shining ones, the Alfar. Alfar means the shining ones. That's what the word for Alps is. Alps during the, when it's covered with snow is shining. During the Ice Ages, it was completely covered with snow. It must have been this gleaming white shining thing. And this is what the elves look like. They are the shining ones. They are the ascended masters of the human race. Just like in the Buddhist tradition, the bodhisattvas who have achieved complete enlightenment, they stand at the edge of infinity, and they turn back towards humans, and they help humans accomplish their own enlightenment, their own spiritual release. And this is what the elves are. It's a very old tradition. The elves are human beings who over multiple lifetimes have achieved spiritual liberation, and just before they enter into the void, back into Ginnungagap, back into the source of all life, and let go of their identity altogether, they turn back towards human beings and they help them. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you links to rituals that I have created based on historical research as well as my own personal experience as a shaman, so that you can connect with the ascended masters, so that you can bring them to you and you can communicate with them. And so this is the whole point behind the Halloween tradition originally. It was a time not only for spiritual purification, but it was a time to connect with the ascended masters. It was also a time that you could connect with your own ancestors. If you wanted to talk to your ancestors, this would be the time to do it. So I could go on and on. Maybe I'll make another video about this, talking more and more about the significance of Halloween. But for now, go ahead and click on the links below in the description. You can click on those. That'll take you to some other videos that I've made, which will give you your own personal Alfablot, your own personal elf sacrifice ritual, where you can call in the power of the ascended masters on this most holy of times and receive your own personal enlightenment, receive blessings from the ascended masters. So until then, my friend, may the gods be with you.